Welcome to video lesson 5.6, which is parallel and perpendicular lines. Let's go ahead and put today's date in the top right hand corner. And our objective for today is that I can write the slope-intercept form of lines that are parallel and perpendicular to one another. Okay, so I can write slope-intercept form of lines that are parallel and perpendicular to one another. Let's review real quick about parallel and perpendicular lines. So parallel lines never intersect, so their slopes are the same. And for our purposes, we're going to be dealing mostly with the slope. So parallel lines never intersect, so their slopes are the same. That's the important part. If you want to underline it or star, their slopes are the same. So it's like if I give you the example, m equals 1/2, and we want to know a slope that's parallel, means side by side, to the slope of 1/2, our new slope would also be 1/2. So our next one we're going to look at is perpendicular. And perpendicular lines intersect at 90-degree angles. Because they do intersect, their slopes are different, and we call them negative reciprocals of each other because they have to intersect at a perfect 90-degree angle, so their slopes are negative reciprocals. Now, negative reciprocal is a fancy way to say we're going to change the sign and flip the fraction. So negative reciprocal means to change the sign from a positive to a negative or from a negative to a positive and flip our fraction. So if I give you the slope 1/8 and ask you to find a slope that's perpendicular to it, which means it crosses, then we would simply just say if this slope's positive, my new slope needs to be negative. If this slope is 1/8, my new slope's going to be 8/1. And as always with slope, you want to see if it can reduce. So -8 divided by 1 is -8. So a slope perpendicular to positive 1/8 is a -8. And perpendicular is a little bit trickier, so let's do one more. So we have m equals 2. So once again, we want to find the slope that's perpendicular to 2. And so we change the sign. So if this one's positive, once again, our new one's going to be negative. Now it says flip the fraction, but 2's not a fraction, so we're going to have to turn him into 1. So I have to say 2/1, and now flip it. So if it's 2/1, our new slope's going to be a -1/2. See if it can simplify? It can't, so our new slope is a -1/2. Now when dealing with parallel and perpendicular lines, we must remember that we only focus on the slope. So when writing an equation that's parallel or perpendicular to another, only focus on the slope. So only focus on the slope. And that's because their y-intercepts will be different. So we want to focus on the slope-intercept first, on the slope first, because, forgot my cuz there. Because their y-intercepts will be different. So we can't focus on the y-intercepts just yet because they will be different. And basically it says this means you will have to always solve for b, like how we did in 5.4. We will still be solving for b, like how we did in our last lesson. So we only focus on the slope, and then we solve for b. Alright, so let's see an example. Example 1. We're asked to write the slope-intercept form of an equation to a line that passes through -1, -2, and is parallel, so that's an important word there, parallel, to the graph of y equals -3x minus 2. So we're going to treat this like writing a linear equation back in our last lesson. The first thing we're going to do is focus on slope. So slope. And we know slopes are variable m. So we come up here and say we want a slope that's parallel. So go back to our notes and we say parallel lines have same slope. So if this slope is a negative 3, our new slope's also going to be a negative 3. So we're going to now have to find our y-intercept because we have our slope, our y-intercept is our variable b, and I'm going to have to plug it into my y equals mx plus b. So I have to come up here to my order pair, find my x and my y. So y is negative 2 equals, m we said would be negative 3 times x is negative 1 plus b. So now we have to simplify and say negative 2 equals negative 3 times negative 1 makes a positive 3 plus b. Now we keep our negative 2 here on the left, and since that's a positive 3, he's going to come over and become a minus 3 equals b. Negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5 equals b. So I have my slope, I have my y-intercept. Now all we do is write our equation. So y equals mx plus b. In our last form, we leave y as a variable, so y equals m is a negative 3. We drop down our x, and instead of saying plus a negative 5, I just say minus 5. And now we wrote an equation that is parallel to the equation it gave us. And the easiest way to go back and double check yourself is to just make sure the slopes are the same for a parallel line. So that slope up there is negative 3, my slope down here is a negative 3. So we're good. Okay, so let's move on to our second example. It says write the slope-intercept form of an equation that passes through the point negative 3, negative 2, and is perpendicular to the graph x plus 4y equals 12. Okay, so now the very first thing we need to do is find our slope. And slope for perpendicular lines are negative reciprocals. So go back to your notes and always look and see perpendicular lines intersect. So their slopes are negative reciprocals. So we have to come over here and look at this equation first and figure out what's the slope of this line. Well, it's a little difficult to see, so I'm going to say y equals mx plus b and solve it for slope-intercept form first. So my 4y is going to stay here on the left, equals. Now right beside my equal sign I want my x. So if that's a positive 1x, I'm going to bring him across and make him a negative 1x. Then my plus 12 drops. My last step I need to do to solve for y here is divide everybody here by 4. So 4's cancel and y equals negative 1 over 4x plus 12 divided by 4 is 3. So remember, when we're writing these equations, we focus on slope first. So let's see, what is the slope of this first line? Negative 1/4. So my new slope over here is a negative reciprocal. So if this slope's negative, my new slope needs to be positive. If this slope is 1 over 4, I'm going to flip it and say my new slope is 4 over 1. Then we say 4 over 1 can reduce. So 4 divided by 1 is just 4. So I have my new slope. Now let's find our y-intercept. Oh, let's grab blue for our y-intercept. And that's our variable b. And once again we have to go to our y equals mx plus b. And up to our order pair. So our y value in our order pair is negative 2. Equals, we said our new slope was 4 times x is negative 3 plus b. So simplify, 4 times negative 3 is a negative 12 plus b. So we're going to keep our negative 2 on the left and bring over our negative 12 and make him a plus 12 equals b. Negative 2 plus 12 is 10. So I have my m. I now have my y-intercept of 10. Now we just plug it all back into our formula y equals mx plus b. And as always, y and x stay variable, so y equals, we said our new slope was 4x plus our new b is 10. There we go. And that is our equation for a line that is perpendicular to our first one. And that finishes up for our parallel and perpendicular lines.